Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to our 24th of June 2024 Council meeting. I'll open the meeting at 7 p.m. I would like to formally read the acknowledgement of the traditional custodians and Council's diversity statement. I'd like to acknowledge that our meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri Wurrung people, and on behalf of Banyule City Council, I wish to acknowledge them as the traditional custodians, and I would like to pay my respects to any Wurrung people, past, present, emerging, and would acknowledge any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders joining us today. And our diversity statement. Our community is made up of diverse cultures, beliefs, abilities, bodies, sexualities, ages and genders. We are committed to access, equity, participation and the rights of everyone, principles which empower, foster harmony, increase the wellbeing of an inclusive community. I'd now like to pass on to our Chief Executive Officer, Alison Beckwith, who will read out the formalities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome all to this ordinary meeting of Council. As the Mayor indicated, my name is Alison Beckwith and I'm the Chief Executive Officer here at Banyule. Tonight's meeting is being held in person in accordance with the provisions of Council's Governance Rules and Local Government Act 2020. The meeting is also being live streamed via Council's website and Facebook page. The live stream is not interactive, so any comments or private messages directed to us while the stream is live will not be presented to the Council group or have any bearing on tonight's meeting. Council's request to speak methods allow Council's residents to have participation in tonight's meeting without having to attend in person. I'll just take you through some guidelines for our participation tonight. Public question time will occur at the conclusion of the meeting. If a member of the public who submitted a question is present, they are welcome to read their question as submitted or have their question read out on behalf of them by a member of staff. If the person is not present at the time public questions are being heard, the question will not be read out. All public questions and their responses will be included in the meeting minutes following tonight's meeting. I'll just remind you that no statement may be derogatory, defamatory or directed to an individual councillor, member of staff, ratepayer or member of public. A 2-minute time limit does apply to anyone who has requested to speak tonight, and the timer will be used and a warning will sound at the 1.5-minute mark. And if anything is being read out by officers, they will also sum up for the last 30 seconds. We ask that members of the gallery please check their phones to ensure that they're either switched off or on silent mode to avoid any disruptions. And I would like to also remind those present that Council has a zero tolerance for any form of bullying, harassment or violence. Everyone present in the gallery, including community, members of the Council staff, councillors, are expected to respect individual views of all others, irrespective of their own views held, and respectively participate in the Council meeting. If members of the gallery are intending to leave the meeting before the meeting closes tonight, I do ask that you don't hold conversations with others just in the foyer or until you're outside the building. The noise actually reverberates up to the chamber. As you can imagine, this is an old building and so it doesn't have much soundproofing and it does affect those listening at home, so I thank you in advance for that. I'll now introduce you to the councillors who are in attendance tonight, and I'll start to my left. So I have Councillor Fiona Mitsonikos, Councillor Peter Dimorellis and Councillor Alison Champion. And to my right, the Mayor, Councillor Tom Malikan, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Rick Garotti, Councillor Elizabeth Neely and Councillor Mark Di Pasquale. Tonight we are also joined by Council's executive team. So to my left, I have Natasha Swan, Director of City Development, Joseph Tobacco, Director of Community Wellbeing, and over to the right, Darren Bennett, Director of Assets and City Services, and Tony Tuoldo, Acting Director, Corporate Services. Also here supporting the Council team tonight are members of the Governance team and IT team, and we thank you for participating in tonight's meeting. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. The first item is the confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 3rd of June. Could I ask the councillor to move and second, please? Moved Councillor Garotti, seconded Councillor Mitsonikos. I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. Disclosure of interest as required and any other meeting, council must declare a conflict of interest at the start of the meeting and leave the meeting when the item is being presented. Are there any disclosures of interest tonight? There are none. Oh, sorry, Councillor Mitzinak, you do have a conflict of interest, sorry. Councillors, I note that Councillor Fiona Mitzinikos is seeking a leave of absence from Council. Council, it is important to note that the Council must accept any reasonable request of leave under the Local Government Act 2020. Councillor Mitzinikos, I note you need to declare a material conflict of interest regarding this leave and be absent and leave the chamber before the vote. Before seeking the motion, can I please ask Councillor Mitzinikos to leave the chamber? So we have a request for a leave of absence for one council meeting. Can I look for someone to move Councillor Grotti, seconded Councillor Demorales. Put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried. Can I ask Councillor Mitzinikos to come back, please? And I should also acknowledge that we have two apologies tonight, Councillor Peter Castaldo and Councillor Lita McKern, who are both away at the moment. So we've done the confirmation of the minutes, disclosure of interest from councillors. So disclosure of interest from staff. Are there any disclosure of interest from staff? There are none. Urgent business. There are no urgent business items. There is one petition. Point 21, petition for curbside waste rate proposed increase. There is a written statement from David Mulholland. Natasha Swan will read that submission. Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and councillors, for the opportunity to present this petition on behalf of the petitioners tonight. It is to be noted that the petition needed to be lodged by the 3rd of June to make the agenda for this meeting, therefore limiting the ability to get more signatures. It is also noted that council do not allow online petitions. Several more pages of signatures have been obtained, which we'll understand will be referred to the appropriate council department for consideration. It is indeed staggering that council would consider imposing an increase of 27.95% to any separate rate in a cost of living crisis. We applaud Councillor Grotti and his fellow 4 councillors for adopting the amended motion, reducing this increase to the 2.75% rate cap for both separate waste rates for the period of public advertising, and look forward to all councillors' support that this will be their final decision tonight when adopting the budget for 24-25. However, we do note that the proposed underlying deficit has been increased to $5.477 million. Whilst we appreciate that this is the simplest way for council officers to accommodate this change, this in simple terms is really just kicking the can down the road for the next council to deal with, rather than create any structural changes to the budget. Councillor Grotti mentioned 2 line items that could be cut, being consultants and legal fees to recover the $1.5 million. In addition, as there always appears to be a significant carryover of projects year to year in the Capital Works program, there is significant scope for some projects, or part thereof, to slide to the following year to make up this shortfall and beyond to create a small underlying surplus. Petitioners and all Banyule residents will view council's decision tonight with great interest.
Thank you. Are there any questions from councillors? Look for a councillor to move a motion. Move Councillor Grotti, seconded Councillor Champion. Comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Happy to move per the officer recommendation, and noting that this will effectively be considered a little bit later in the agenda when we comes to the budget, and under the proposed final budget now, the rates for waste have been set at the cap of 2.75%. so we can explore that further at that point in time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? And Councillor De Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, just to comment that it's good that members of the community are asking questions with regards to rates. Now we have a separated waste rate from the general rate, which was done not too long ago. Before this, also to note that we had been absorbing higher costs of waste over previous years in our general rate. As the landfill levy continued to go up and up, Mayor, over the recent years, it just year after year, it kept getting higher and higher. We were absorbing that rate or those extra costs within the general rate, basically because we had made some very fiscally responsible decisions in the years gone past to put us in a position to be able to do that. So I believe we are still in a very strong position financially. There's no need to really be raising this rate, but it's good that the community are looking at it and keeping us accountable, because what I would not like to see is a new council following the elections, just with the stroke of the pen, just raising that waste rate to whatever they want, because it's not mandated or legislated. It has to be at a certain level, or it's not rate capped. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. I believe we have a procedural matter. Councillor De Moralis.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would like to bring, excuse me. I'd like to bring item 4.1, adoption of proposed public order dogs and cats petition, to now, before 3.1 in the agenda, or after 2.1, which is now. Thank you.
Move Councillor De Moralis. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Neely. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move to item 4.1. The adoption of the proposed public order dogs and cats in public places. We have 9 speakers. The first speaker listed is Alicia Curry, but I haven't seen Alicia as yet. Might wait. Oh, there. Welcome, Alicia. Nice to see you.
Good evening. Sorry, I'm on a bit of a back foot at the moment. So Alicia Curry Rosanna, and I'm a daily walker of our local parklands. And first off the bat, I want to give a shout out to Australian Canine Rescue and other dog rescue organisations and the people that support them. I'm grateful to have just recently adopted my 2 gorgeous adult dogs, Kobe and Charlie, and I encourage all prospective dog owners to consider adoption before considering purchasing a puppy. I've lived in Rosanna for 17 years, and my previous dogs had daily off-lead walks around the whole park for 16 years of their lives. And to lose this would be a great tragedy for this unique park and other spaces with the same opportunity for the many dog walkers in Banyule. Secondly, the process to get tonight's agenda item has been seriously flawed. I question that any decision can be made based on the 2022 survey, given the bias and the misinterpretation of the data obtained. So the survey question, should dogs be controlled in public spaces, revealed that, and was admitted by council, that they had inferred the answer and reported 88% of respondents said that dogs should be controlled in public spaces and should be on a lead. So they've added that bit. Now, my answer to the survey question back in 2022 had pointed out the leading question and had also pointed out that voice command would be a form of control of dogs. And I know a number of other residents in Rosanna and other areas had also mentioned that, and yet that was not taken into consideration when council inferred the answer. So thirdly, the most disappointing aspect of this debacle is that council survey had indicated their inquiry was into the behaviour of dogs, and a number of people that had made complaints about potentially dog behaviour. And I think council's failed to investigate and find any answers for those people. You had an opportunity and due diligence to consider people who are not dog walkers, and I think in just about every year of your annual budget and surveys, I put in, could you please put signage up in the Rosanna Parklands? So I think you had an opportunity, and I think all you've done is aggravated the community and not come up with a proper solution. So I've said that I'm supporting this, but actually what I'm supporting is you backing off what the original recommendations were. And I'm aware that Dogs of Banyule people who are speaking tonight have made recommendations, and I'm going to support their recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Our second speaker is Melissa Murphy-Webster. Welcome, Melissa. You have 2 minutes as well.
Okay, I'm speaking in regards to cats tonight. At this point, no report has been able to say what impact pet cats have had on wildlife. They are guesstimates, and any claim to state a specific number cannot be justified by small-scale studies of a couple of hundred cats, when there are nearly 4 million registered cats in Australia, and each has their different ecosystem. A report referred to by Banyule states that 38% of the animals killed by pet cats are introduced species like rodents, house sparrows and Indian miners. How that quantity was gained is not being explained. Intervention may be short-sighted and more damaging, given that Melbourne has had at least 3 rodent plagues in the last 4 years. There are no reports from adjoining councils about the impact before and after curfew implementation, including increase and decreased rodent and fox data. In contrast, reports can be found that show confinement laws increase cat complaints, impounding and euthanasia, as opposed to actions by Banyule, which have a free desexing program that has decreased these metrics by at least 61%. Bell use also reduces successful hunting by 52%, and desexing can change the impact on aggression and behaviour. There is a psychological benefit from outdoor time, and confinement of cats can cause health-related problems such as obesity and diabetes. And I, for one, after 2020 and 2021, know that having movements restricted doesn't better improve one's life. While containment is thought to be one part of the solution to managing domestic cats, it's only relevant to owned cats and semi-owned cats, as semi-owned cats and unowned cats have no one to contain them, and therefore curfews will not be able to provide the desired outcome. It should also be considered that repetitive cycle trap, adopt and kill approach doesn't reduce wandering number due to reproduction, rate, immigration and survival of juveniles. The RASPC said overall councils with cat containment regulations have not been able to demonstrate any measurable reduction in cat complaints or cats wandering at large following the introduction of regulations. So I believe Banyule should not be making any changes to the cat component of the public order until a reporting mechanism can be put in place that quantifies complaints, cat health and impact on other animals. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Trying to get that out in 2 minutes.
Our next speaker is Mary O'Kane. Welcome, Mary. You have 2 minutes as well.
Hi, good evening. I'm speaking on behalf of the dog people of Banyule Network. There are many aspects of the proposed public order that we welcome, including the status quo remains for many points, including distance restrictions to shared pathways, barbecues and playgrounds. We welcome a redefined understanding of effective control. However, we have serious concerns about other points councillors are asked to vote on tonight. First, we find that point 4 fundamentally reconceptualises a dog's relationship to public space from a positive being in space but restricted in certain areas to a negative one of being restricted in every space except those listed in the schedule. Second, we find alarming the introduction of a schedule consisting of a list of parks, reserves and playfields. This is a mechanism by which dogs can be banned from these shared public spaces if there is a prioritising of interests of sporting clubs, schools and other organisations and institutions over those of our organic communities. What worries us the most is what these two things combined allow for the future. Here I turn to our third concern, recommendation 6, that you're asked to vote for. The endorsement of an inclusion of an initiative in its next domestic animal management plan to develop a program that reviews dog accessibility in Banyul's major reserves and sporting grounds. This recommendation sustains our community's fear that our access to sporting grounds will soon be diminished and or denied, and we strongly oppose this because the community has made itself abundantly clear in its support for dogs' access to sporting grounds in the current public order review. In saying all this, we understand that there is an amendment put forward by a councillor that would address most of our serious concerns. We would support such an amendment that would uphold the rights of our communities to these shared spaces. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Our next speaker is Richard Webb, who's speaking for the recommendation. You also have 2 minutes, please, Richard. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors. As a dog owner, I'd like to voice my general support for the recommendations. This has been a stressful consultation filled with worry and concern, but it's good to see the council taking on board the responses from the survey and proposing appropriate and sensible updates to the public order. However, one of the recommendations is not like the others, and I urge you to strongly reject recommendation 6. Recommendations 1 to 5 were informed and supported by survey findings, whereas recommendation 6 is not. In fact, it seeks the complete opposite of what was found. For example, the survey found that 69 to 73% support for the current 5-metre distance from barbecues and playgrounds. This has been rightfully accepted by council as grounds to maintain the existing regulation. However, even more people, 73 to 76%, support the existing access and use of reserves and sports fields, but this is somehow not accepted by council, and it wishes to further prohibit and restrict dogs next year under its domestic animal management plan review. This inconsistency raises concerns. Why is one response from the community valid but the other not? Why does this council continue to pursue the prohibition and restriction of dogs on sports fields and reserves, even after it has asked the community and the community has overwhelmingly rejected it? It is unfair to continue to threaten further prohibitions on dogs and their owners on what public spaces they will and won't be allowed to use. This looming spectre of prohibition will cause ongoing stress and anxiety to owners and will be detrimental to our mental health. You have already asked the community what they think. You have the answer. 69% want council's existing approach to remain the same across the board. And when you asked specifically about sports fields, 76% wanted no further restrictions or prohibitions. The community has spoken. Please listen. Commit to protecting our access and use of reserves and sports fields.
Thank you, Richard. Well spoken. Our next speaker is Linda Kennedy. Linda, welcome.
These are new, I'm still getting used to them. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Last time the public order for cats and dogs was reviewed, Banyule Council engaged an independent consultant to undertake the task, an expert in integrating dogs and cats as pets into the urban environment. This time, Banyule Council assigned the task to the municipal laws team in council. This is the very team whose task it is to deal with complaints about nuisance animals, day in, day out. Being exposed to only negative reports of dogs in the community might lead to a rather negative perspective and thus influence ideas on how best to control dogs in order to decrease the number of responsible pet owner complaints on the CRM. The very title of the proposed new public order refers to the control of dogs and cats. This is clearly not seen as an integration of animals into the community. It alludes to the impression that dogs and their people are not seen as legitimate users of public spaces, but rather a menace that must be contained. Sadly, this impression has been evident throughout the review process. But there are obvious benefits to having dogs present in our public spaces, benefits such as improved mental and physical health of people, increased social connection, cohesion and well-being, decreased loneliness and isolation. These are all important elements of a resilient and connected community, and they appear to have been largely overlooked by Council in favour of other community cohorts and assets. Despite the most recent survey results for this public order review indicating community expectations to the contrary, Council is now considering developing a program that reviews dog accessibility in Banyul's major reserves and sports grounds next year. These are public spaces that we all pay for and we're all entitled to use as residents within the community. They are our spaces, whether we are sports players or not. Interestingly, in the gender impact assessment, there was no mention of the fact that the majority of people who currently use Banyul sports fields for sport are men. Dog people are not unreasonable people. We understand that issues exist that need to be addressed, but there are far more positive ways we can approach this. We can do so much better than the status quo. Banyul could be an innovative leader in this space and an example for other municipalities to follow. I believe we could achieve not only a reduction in complaints, but a truly cohesive and harmonious community, which is what we all want after all. Let's work together to aim for that.
Thank you, Linda. Very well. Very good. Michelle Jarvis is the next speaker. You have 2 minutes as well. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Mayor Tom.
Pardon?
Thank you.
My pleasure.
I spoke to Council against this proposed change when it was first raised, and I'm pleased to say that I'm now in favour of clearer bylaws to address dog and cat safety. Generally, regarding pet dogs, there has been improved clarity about the bylaws wording, but I'm concerned about the addition of a list of approved council reserves in the attached schedule, as this schedule was not part of the consultation process. And it seems that removing reserves from the schedule will be a simple, non-transparent flick of the pen, a non-transparent administrative change that will not be easily defended by the dog-owning community, and I'm anticipating that others will speak to this in more detail. However, why is the cat curfew and the requirement for cats to be contained on their owner's property decades behind pet dogs' control and management? Dogs roaming the local streets freely and chasing cars, etc., is a thing of the distant past, but not so for cats. In Banyul, cats are still free to roam, still free to be run over, killed and injured by vehicles, still involved in cat fighting, still involved in breeding and producing unwanted litters, and we know they are responsible for many native birds and animal deaths as they roam the streets and local parklands. They also carry disease such as toxoplasmosis, which is transmitted by cat faeces, and cats permitted to roam are a health threat to the unborn child of pregnant women and people with weakened immune systems. Community groups such as Montmorency Biodiversity Group have been calling on Council for years to bring in 24-hour cat curfews. The proposed cat curfew timing, 1st of Feb 2027, is more than 2.5 years away and should be brought forward by at least 12 months. Banyul's community groups recognise that many other local councils already have 24-hour cat curfews bylaws in operation. Banyul is far from a trendsetter. Council needs to be more proactive and to support cat owners to keep their cats indoors or fully contained on their own properties in caticos or outdoor cat runs. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Our next written statement is from Dr. John Watson and will be read by Joseph Tobacco. John is speaking against the recommendations. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you, Mayor. The statement reads, having worked in the City of Banyul as a veterinary surgeon for 30 years, I estimate that about a third of my patients were cats. With the introduction of licensing of cats and mandatory microchipping, there has been a significant reduction in feral cat numbers and a massive improvement in cat ownership identification. To control the cat population, all non-breeding stock must be neutered. Schemes in the past offering discounts for the simple surgery have been very successful. In my experience, most veterinarians are very aware of the negative potential of uncontrolled cat population explosion and already discounted cat neutering. Cats make excellent companion animals for people who want a smaller pet for thousands of years. Many body corporates now permit cats in apartments and units. However, even though cats are intelligent animals, it is hard to teach them between catching a rat, which is something people most applaud, and catching a baby bird or marsupial, which most people certainly don't applaud in our society. Bells and fancy collars have been tried with a poor success rate, but claw trimming is very successful in my opinion. This is not the cruel procedure of declawing, which is illegal in Australia. Small, inexpensive guillotine-type nail clippers are available and are painless and easy to use. To reach bird nests, cats need sharp claws, and even catching prey on the ground also needs sharp claws on the cat's front feet before the cat's teeth are brought into play. There's also an animal cruelty issue in the suddenly introducing a rule that all domestic cats in Banyule must be kept indoors when they have spent a decade or more with freedom of living a more normal life. Therefore, to avoid this situation, any mature cat should be allowed to continue to live in the home and outside. If the keeping of the indoor rule is introduced, it should only be applied to the young animals that have never experienced the big outside world of the garden.
Thank you. Our next written statement is from Rochelle Hanover and will be read by Darren Bennett, Director of Assets and City Services. Thank you, Darren.
Thank you, Mayor. As a former owner of an indoor cat, I enjoy seeing outdoor cats visit my property. The visiting cats keep pesky birds out of the garden that dig up seedlings and plants. I rarely see native birds in my garden anyway, always the miners, etc. Will they increase in numbers if cats are restricted? A neighbour has said her cat has a ratio of dead things her cat brings home is 9-1, rodents versus birds. I wonder about rodent population too, as I personally have a rat and mouse problem and hate putting bait out in case other animals consume it accidentally. Plus, it's inhumane and causes immense suffering. The behaviour of the outdoor cat I looked after for 6 months drastically improved when I let it out, despite me being determined it would be only an indoor cat while it was on my watch. The cat never strayed out for long anyway. I'm thinking of getting another cat, however, I don't want to restrict their natural curious behaviour, and also outdoor cat tunnels, cages are expensive. We live in such a highly regulated society with unnecessary rules and regulations, especially ones that don't seem to work in other areas and are not conducive of a real solution. Perhaps a better public awareness campaign regarding responsible pet ownership is the better way to go, as I am shocked at some of the hatred expressed towards cats in local social media groups and fear what people may do to them if laws come in to restrict them.
Thank you. Our final statement is from Edwina Enwistle. Did you want to speak, Edwina? Yeah, welcome.
Hello, here I am now. I won't go over that. I think you heard me. My voice is quite loud. In all those years, I've walked my dog off lead on football ovals and reserves, and never ever has there been a problem until now. And why has it become a problem? Well, we could speculate about that, but it seems to me that football ovals, no matter what the code, are public space, as are reserves, and can be enjoyed by the public, whoever they may be, within reason. It seems to me reasonable that a person and a dog might enjoy a public space at times when the oval or reserve is not being used by other members of the public for other purposes. Over time, I've come to expect that this is the way we do things. If I'm understanding correctly, and please do inform me if I'm wrong, Banyule Council seeks to introduce a schedule which names the places where a person may walk a dog. I don't understand who will nominate these spaces and by what criteria they will do so. I don't understand by what process they will consult with the community about this. It's safe to say that I just don't understand how a perfectly reasonable activity like walking a dog in a public space off-lead when that space is not being used by others is now to be so scrutinised and regimented that a person and a dog might live in fear of stepping over this new line drawn by unknown others in ways not understood. Why? I don't think I'm an unreasonable person. I just want to take my dog for a walk in a way that is safe for my dog, others and myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Edwina. I'm very pleased you decided to read that. That was lovely. So there is a motion on the papers. I believe there's an alternate recommendation. Could someone please read out that alternate recommendation?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Happy to read out an amended motion. So point number 1 as is. Point number 2, that Council adopt the proposed council order for the control of dogs and cats as shown in attachment 2 to this report with the following amendments. Section 2A, Section 5.2A to be amended to read as follows. During council licence permitted and organised events, dogs must be placed on lead. The definition of organised events in the public order be amended to reflect changes required under Section 5.2A. 2B, Section 7, cat confinement to be amended such that the confinement for cats is established as a trial for a period of 2 years to commence on the 1st of February 2025, which is to include a minimum 6-month amnesty period from the date of commencement to assist cat owners transition to the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. cat curfew. Point number 3, for Council to receive a further report from officers upon conclusion of the 2-year cat curfew trial to report on key findings of the trial and to include any further recommendations concerning cat restrictions within the municipality. 4, confirm that the schedule of council reserves in the council order for the control of dogs and cats can only be amended through a formal review of the council order. 5, authorise the CEO to publish the required statutory notices in the Victorian, actually 5 as is, 6 as is, and then I think there's a few on the next page. Yep. 7, include an initiative in its domestic animal management plan that a community education program be incorporated into the plan that includes but is not limited to benefits of cat curfews and methods to assist in the transition to achieving containment during cat curfew times and responsible dog ownership and management of dogs in public places, both on lead and off lead best practices. And the final point 8, note that as part of its next domestic animal management plan, a review on the best ways to address dog waste and management within our parks. So moved, Mayor.
Move, Councillor Grotti. Is there a second to Councillor Champion? Are there any questions from councillors about these amendments? If there are none, would you like to speak, Councillor Grotti?
Thank you, Mayor. So, these amendments essentially look to preserve what's already there. So there was quite a bit of feedback tonight and in the consultation feedback that Council received around the initial recommendation number 6. That's been removed and deleted. And I hope that that gives the community a lot of confidence now that this dog and order cat review, particularly for dogs, is done and dusted. And I think that the community was really looking for that confidence and certainty. The amendments clarify the reserve schedule and make it very clear that that schedule cannot be amended unless there's an entire review of the entire council order. And again, I think that members of the community were concerned that reserves could be deleted or removed from that without the order being amended. So again, hopefully that gives certainty and clarity to the community. There was a bit of feedback that I received regarding events and whether or not that could then result in some restrictions for dogs. What we've tried to do now is just very clarify what is an event. So it's a council licensed, permitted and organised event. So a very clear definition there, again, to give that certainty, clarity and confidence back to our dog owning community. From a dog perspective, as a council now with these amendments and what we're putting forward, we'd like to think things are done and dusted, and I'm sure our dog community would as well. From a cat perspective, there's been some differences in opinion around cat curfews, 24-hour, 12-hour. There are opinions that there shouldn't be any cat confinement at all. And so as a balance as a council, and if it's supported by my colleagues, we're looking to arrive at a compromise there for a 12-hour curfew trial, but also to give a very reasonable transition time frame. And that was in fact a recommendation from Animal Welfare Australia to say that you can't just immediately put this thing in, you need to enable people to transition to it. So with that, I'd just like to thank Mary, Marta, Lindy and Melissa for the engagement that you've done with me over this issue. And I think it's also important too, just for me to call out the very poor consultation process that has occurred on this issue. I am part of the leadership team this year, along with our Mayor and CEO, and I personally say sorry to the community for the way that the consultation on this occurred. I think it could have been done better, fairer, more honestly, more transparently. I'm very sorry about the stress and the concern and the anxiety that this has created for a lot of people in our community. But I'm hoping now with the amended recommendation that we have, that there's a confidence there, a clarity for the community, and we can move forward strongly together. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm probably going to have to do what Melissa did, which is talk really fast. I'm a supporter of the RSPCA. I adopted a young cat about 23 years ago. Didn't quite live to 1,000 years, but, you know, lived its life. And then since it passed away, I've been regularly donating. So I actually receive a lot of information from the RSPCA, and I'm very aware that there are a very small handful of humans, let's be politely calling them humans, who actually have no regard for animal life. They have no respect, they have no love for animals. And they are significantly maltreated, and I will not be going into the detail here, it is incredibly distressing. So to hear our community come out so passionately and strongly and vehemently in support of their pets and the freedom of their pets is very refreshing, and it's probably the biggest consultation that we've had. So thank you all very, very much for your contribution, not because you're a community contributing, but because you've also been very educational for us. I was at Anthony Beale Reserve yesterday afternoon from 4:15 to 4:35, and I got to stop and just watch people play with their dogs, different species, and everyone and every dog was so happy. They were having the best time, so it was really lovely to see. I will also add that this has provided a lot of information that for those who don't own animals, they are significant companions for us, and we love them and they're part of our families and our homes. Linda, your poem I read very late last night, that was very educational. From the doggy's point of view, that was perfect. For me, as a crazy cat lady, that was perfect for me, so thank you. Just as a crazy cat lady, I actually thought that you actually did keep your cat in at night and you did de-sex it. So we do that with all our cats. So I just thought that was normal. And then I learnt that we don't have that in Banyule. So I was a little bit embarrassed about that. But most pet cat owners know this. They already do this. They already know this. And they keep their pets in for safety, for their own health and well-being, as well as the other aspects of disease and animal management. One of my pets, Rosie, she led a very short life, unfortunately. Beautiful cat, not the sharpest tool in the shed, and she was run over, and it was a human being who was driving the car, I'm sure. So that's a perfect example of keeping your cat in. She got out. I just want to make a point, and I'm sorry, Mayor, I am moving on a little bit more than my 3 minutes, but I just want to make a point. The mandatory desexing of cats and the 24-hour cat curfew, the concept of those is actually covered in the discussion paper. And I'm certainly aware that mandatory desexing, not all cats should be desexed, some are breeders, so that is actually covered in the paper, but that will certainly be, that will continue to be a conversation as well as the 24-hour cat curfew, but at the moment we've got the 12 hours. So thank you all for your education and your support and your input. We've really, really appreciated it. Thank you very, very much. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any further comments? Councillor Di Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, thank you to using your discretion to listen to all the speakers tonight. You didn't have to. We have a, we'll say a rule, but we have a statement that says 3 for and 3 against. But I think using your discretion to listen to the community, especially on this item, you've used that discretion very well tonight, so thank you very much for that. Secondly, I think one of the things I've seen with this process is that for us doing dogs and cats at the same time has been an issue. I think, and looking back now, they probably should have been separated because there are many, many issues in both areas that need different surveying, different consultation. So I think that was a bit of a downfall as well. And yeah, I do think there was a bit of a downfall with regards to how the whole consultation began with regards to surveys, etc. A lot of actions that were done were brought to my attention, also fellow councillors' attention. We have had discussions about that. We've spoken with officers and our CEO, etc. Look, we understand that it probably wasn't done the best way it could have been done. So I would like to apologise for that as well. But I would like to commend the community for getting behind this process. I'd like to thank members of the community who have met with myself and also fellow councillors to voice their opinions, experiences, etc. I think the results of the surveys being so overwhelming was good to see, and I think the consultation worked in the end, and I think the outcome tonight is evidence of that. So I think with regards to dog ownership and the way we function as a community for dogs, it's pretty much a status quo. So let's continue on doing our best as a community in relation to our dogs. And with regards to cats, there's some things to work through, because from what I have been told through organisations such as the Cat Protection Society in Greensborough and other organisations as well, is that possibly we should be moving to a desexing program, which is mandatory for all cats, and secondly, confinement needs to be increased, in their opinion. So I think a future council will continue speaking about that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Neely.
Thank you, Mayor. Many residents have asked me why council is reviewing the public order of cats and dogs. This is to ensure that the regulation of cats and dogs reflect the current community, current standards, current expectations, as this was introduced back in 1997. So council has to review things, in a timely manner. Officers have worked hard to present findings. The community have been very engaged, as we all know, contacting councillors, submitting feedback to the Mayor. The proposed changes outlined in the report, and a lot are around the language and the clarification. or to contemporise or enhance. So the biggest change, as mentioned, is the provision for cat curfews. The other amendments do not change what is permitted in the existing public order. I'd like to also mention 31 councils have cat curfews, 8 councils are investigating the situation, and it's all about benefiting everybody and everything. So for our pets, we want them to be safe. For wildlife, we want wildlife to thrive. We want community amenity and also community wellbeing for our pet owners. So thank you to all the residents that called me and emailed all of us with their feedback. It's been a very detailed experience. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any further speakers? Councillor Mitsonikos.
Thanks, Mayor. And thank you to all our speakers tonight. It was certainly a hot topic. We've had many emails and calls from residents who wanted to voice their opinions and concerns. And we really needed to get this right so that it's fair on dog and cat owners, but also those in the community without pets. We need to ensure the safety and welfare of people and animals using public spaces, including our parks and sports grounds. And of course, the protection of wildlife and the environment and the happiness of dogs and cats and their owners. Like Alison was saying, I also love seeing dogs' happy faces as they chase around their puppy friends at the park. But there's definitely social aspects that come with dogs being able to run around and their owners meeting up with their friends as well and having a chat. You know, there are always going to be people who don't pick up after their pets, and you know, I'd like to see that change because that's probably the only downer with dogs running around in parks. But it's about responsible pet ownership, picking up after your pet, training your dog for recall, or knowing that if they don't have strong recall skills that they shouldn't be left to wander the streets or parks for their own safety, but also for others who are enjoying the outdoors. Thanks.
Thank you. Further comment? Thank you, Peter. I will make a few comments. Yeah, one thing that did come very clear through this was the impact that COVID had and how people become even more attached, and how many people went out there because of loneliness and purchased a pet and had become very, very attached to that. And the other thing that really struck me about this whole process is every reserve you went to, there was an informal group of people who met there on a regular basis to walk their cat and dog. And that certainly happened at Ford Park, Olympic Park. It's been happening at Rosanna Park for a long time, but every other reserve you spoke to people about this order, the community they talked about was their little community of people that meet there at the same time every day and walk their dogs and talk together and just enjoy each other's company. And how I spoke to one people in Chelsworth Park who said that one of their members moved away and comes back every Sunday morning to walk his dog from a long distance just to be with his friends. So it just shows you the bond that's been created through the pets. And the other thing, I spoke to a few vets. I spoke to also the dog training organisations, and there are several across Banyule. And to every individual I spoke to, they all talked about how every pet owner wanted every other pet owner to do the right thing, and how many talked about if they see another pet owner doing the wrong thing, how upset they get, and they often speak to them. So it's not about us trying to force laws, requirements on people. People are quite happy to be, the vast majority of people are quite happy to be responsible pet owners and to try and do something about the people that are not. So, and I can continue myself. And the other thing I'd say is that people that work in this area are actually massive dog lovers. Like you look at our staff, you look at the people at the RSPCA and the Cat Protectionist Society, they are super animal lovers, and the last thing they want to see is animals being treated badly, being injured or being put down. And they work incredibly hard, and our staff do this as well, to make sure that these animals are protected and they live a good life. So it's and this is all about trying, as our population grows, our public spaces are becoming under more pressure. More people are relying on smaller places. So we needed to do this review, but I think we got the balance right in between making sure that our ovals are protected. People can play sport, whatever that sport is, when they have a licence to do so, but other times they should be open to people to walk their dogs. And I think that gets this balance right. I've also been very impressed with the way the dogs of Banyule have come together and formed a pack. I shouldn't sure if I should call it a pack, but and I'd have to also say the people that spoke tonight spoke beautifully and with real passion, and it's great to see that in this chamber. So thank you for everyone. I always know every decision council make, not everyone's happy, but I hope that this council, you'll realise that this decision we make tonight is the right decision for this council at this stage. So I'll put that, all those in favour? That is carried. We're going to talk about more mundane human things from now on, so if people would like a minute to leave, that's quite... Thank you for coming. No. Bye, Edwina. Oh, where are we up to, Al? Thank you, Justine. We'll move on to item 3.1, the annual budget 2024 declarations of conflict of interest. There are no speakers. There is a report before us. I look for a councillor to move as per the report. Move Councillor Grotti, seconded Councillor Champion. Comment? There's no comment. I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We move on to item 3.2, adoption of the proposed rate hardship policy. There are no speakers to this motion. I'll look for a councillor to move. Move Councillor Grotti, seconded Councillor Di Pasquale. Comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Very happy to be moving this policy. And I believe that we're one of the few councils, if perhaps the only council in Victoria, that offers rates hardship. So it's 33% off the rates, capped to now $550. And that cap has increased by $50 from $500 in last year's plan. And that's a response to, from this council's perspective, the cost of living challenges that are being faced by ratepayers and being able to have a hardship policy in place to provide a bit of relief. One thing I'm certainly conscious of is that we've got a great mechanism in place now for hardship relief for ratepayers, but we know around a third of our community, if not more, in some areas rent. And one thing I do want to turn my attention to, and with the council and with the communities, look what we can potentially do for renters and potentially look to extend that hardship policy to landlords on the basis that there's a full pass-through to the renters. So I'm just flagging that as a potential future piece of work for this council, because I do think that it's a great policy that we have at the moment, but we're missing a large section of the community. But very proud of the policy that we have. And we do know from the data, our Director of Corporate Services isn't here, but he advises that it is taken up and it is utilised by members of our community. So very happy to move this. Thank you, Mayor.
Would the seconder like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. I think when Director Julio gets back, he's got some questions that we want to be asking with regards to that. It's quite funny. I like that. No, Mayor, I think with regards to this rates hardship policy, we did, as a group, work through this through COVID, and we did understand there were members of our community that were doing it tough. In fact, the whole community was doing it tough at that stage. But also what we did do is we did have a bit of we had open discussions with regards to how, the economic climate was going, and I think we sort of understood that it wasn't going to be roses coming out of the COVID pandemic. I mean, as we've seen, interest rates have gone up. There's still cost of living issues, inflation. We knew the inflation was coming. So we knew that this policy would have had to endeared or continued on following that. It wasn't necessarily going to be a 1 year or a 2 year and then, stop it. I think this has been very successful. It's been well taken up by members of the community. It has helped them out. Other councils have looked at it to see how we have done it and how successful it has been on behalf of the community. Looking back over the last 4 years as a councillor for this term, I think this would be one of the things that I'd sit back and just think, yeah, this is something that we really did, tick off with regards to the community at that time. And to continue it on, I think is a great positive. One of the things that also allowed us to do that, Mayor, is that in the years before COVID, we did have a very, we put in a large effort to pay down debt, which had been accumulated years prior. And we did pay off a lot of debt to put this council in a very financially stable position to be able to make decisions like this and to continue them on. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Neely.
Thank you, Mayor. This policy is about helping those most in need in Banyule, and it is reflective of cost of living pressures. I think it's a very fair process, and officers will continue to review services like this available to ratepayers, particularly providing support exactly where it's needed and to improve the processes to deliver things like this a lot more promptly. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. I'll put that in the name of Councillor Crotty. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to item 3.3, adoption of the Revenue and Rating Plan 2024 to 2028. There are no speakers. There's a council report. I look for a councillor to move. Move Councillor Garotti. Seconded Councillor Champion.
Thank you, Mayor.
Comment?
Just looking to move with a slight amendment to point number 1. The council adopt the proposed Revenue and Rating Plan 2024-28 with an amendment to section 2.1.1, objectives that states the council will consider the cost of living pressures facing residents and ratepayers in setting rates, fees and charges. The rest as is. Thank you, Mayor.
The second to agree with that slight amendment? Comment? Councillor Crotty?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So this is the overarching document for how we go about setting, as it is, our rates and our fees and charges. In the budget that's coming up a little bit later tonight, we've made a decision, hopefully to be ratified around setting our all our rates within the state government cap of 2.75%. We've had a long-term commitment as a council to try and keep fees and charges below at CPI, and certainly during the COVID years we froze those fees and charges. What I thought was important, though, was just to embed as a principle in this document that we will consider cost of living pressures facing residents and ratepayers. And that's also a bit of a signal to officers who have the responsibility of preparing draft budgets and documentation to the council that this is now official. Because I suppose just a reflection that I had through the process was that in some of the initial recommendations that were coming back to us, I didn't feel that the cost of living issues and challenges facing residents was understood or appreciated well enough through some of that advice from officers. This is now embedded, it's official policy. And so I really look forward to that being a future support and service to the council. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment?
I will. Thank you, Mayor. I'm very happy to support the amendment to this recommendation. Essentially, we're not out of the woods economically by any stretch of the imagination, and that's pretty much been since the restrictions, the last restriction in, I think, September 2021. It's not getting better. It's just not. So this is our way of making things a little bit easier for our residents. So currently there are actually residents who are not turning on their gas ducted heating in the middle of like today. It's not going on. Or their gas ducted heating is broken and they're not replacing it. And the reason for that is they can't afford to pay the gas bill. So they're choosing a select number of rooms in their house. In many cases, it's the living room. They might put the heater on in the kitchen. They've just got a blow heater going, or an electric, what do they call those upstanding oil heaters? And they're closing the doors. That's how they're heating themselves and getting them through the winter period, and it's a lot cheaper. That's how they're keeping the costs down. We are actually finding that more and more of our residents are going to our food supply outlets. And these residents are not necessarily the low socioeconomic group. They're actually the middle class, the working people. They don't have enough food to put on the table, money to put food on the table. They're actually coming through to our food outlets, such as Bansick or Green Hills Neighbourhood House. There are more and more residents using our libraries, which is great. They're using our libraries because the libraries are warm and they're comfortable and they get free Wi-Fi, amongst other things. So they get to work in our libraries. They get to continue in our libraries. They get to read in our libraries. They get to do other activities in our libraries because they're free and they're warm. So there's a lot more of that going on that we can see. So this is an opportunity for council for this next 12 months just to provide some economic relief for our residents. So I wholly support this.
Thank you. Further comment? Councillor Mate De Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, the revenue that comes into council's coffers, I suppose, if you want to put it that way, rates. I think everyone knows about rates. We also have a waste rate now, which has been pulled out of the general rate. So that's going to be a bit of a balancing act in the years going forward with regards to whether that rate increases substantially compared to a capped rate, which is mandated by the state government. But one thing that is not, I think, not promoted enough is the way that fees and charges have remained so low, particularly over the last 4 years. 2 years of COVID, we actually froze the fees and charges across the board. So things like, childcare fees, your dog registration, your cat registration, things like that were frozen over those 2 years. And then for the last 2 years, we increased them lower than CPI. So we have been, I think, very responsible in that area. But, the average person in the community wouldn't really know that. They just see, what a fee is to hire a hall and whether they're going to pay it or whether they're not going to pay it. But we have been very persistent, I think, as council laws to make sure that we have kept those charges and fees as low as we possibly can. So we've done our best with regards to rates. We're doing our best with regards to the rate, waste rate, the public waste rate, and we're doing the best we can with regards to the fees and charges. So across the board, I think we are being responsible as we can be in these current times. I hope the community is happy enough going forward with regards to how we've been managing it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to the, what many people consider the biggest item we pass all year. So, and that is 3.4, the adoption of the proposed Banyule City Council budget 2024 to 2028. We have 3 speakers for this item. Lauren Sambar. Is Lauren here? I haven't seen her as yet. Oh, there you are. Oh, sorry. Well, come forward. You have 2 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors, for allowing me to speak on this issue. So I'm just raising the point in regards to the footpath replacement program allocated at $3.1 million in this budget. The footpaths in the north of Banyule, where I'm a resident, are absolutely atrocious. I walk every day in Banyule with a pram, and I'm concerned for the health and safety of parents and their babies, as well as children who are often flying along on their scooters, bikes and skateboards. Secondly, I am a physiotherapist and I'm equally concerned for our elderly residents with impaired mobility. Sustaining a musculoskeletal injury for a 30-year-old going for a run would be a minor inconvenience. Something like this would be incredibly detrimental to our elderly residents within Banyule. High defects, potholes, tree root damage are posing a really huge safety risk in the north of Banyule. The next point I raise is pertaining to Bry Hill. I urge every councillor to go and visit Railway Road in Bry Hill and attempt to safely access the end of Railway Road up onto Para Road to access Greensboro Station and Greensboro Plaza. Residents are forced to basically enter the road on a blind turn to access Para Road, and they're also forced to climb 7 steps up onto Para Road. No ramp, no rails, virtually impossible to do if you're a parent pushing a pram or a resident in a wheelchair. Sherborne Road also remains extremely hazardous outside of Sherborne Preschool. There's been asphalt temporary fixes along there, but they are a temporary fix as per the council's management plan. I am concerned that this $3 million allocation will not see the total revamp and replacement of footpaths within Banyule. I will finish up in a moment. I am concerned that there has been significant Band-Aid fixes for the last 4 years, and we need total upheaval. So, walking to kinder, walking to school, walking to or from public transport, something we want to encourage, the council encourages us to do. If we can't access these things safely, people are just going to get in their cars. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Alicia Curry. Oh, sorry, Councillor Di Pasquale.
Mayor, just a question if possible.
Did you want to take a question?
Probably to officer, and can be taken on notice, but just with regards to what was mentioned tonight with regards to Railway Road, Briar Hill, this is the area of level crossing removal works. What is being done with regards to these problems from the Level Crossing Removal Authority, or by the Level Crossing Removal Authority?
Natasha Swan, would you be in a position to answer that question?
I believe I can have a go at answering it, Mayor. So through you, Mayor, that part of the railway duplication includes a shared path that runs along the alignment, so those works are incomplete. I'm very aware of the 7 steps and the narrow corner that's provided at that intersection. Those are all temporary. There is a longer term plan fix that would have a ramped access from Railway Road up to Para Road, and then the continuation of that wide shared path all the way along to the next intersection and beyond, connecting to Montmorency Station. So it is at the moment in a state of disrepair because it's effectively sort of partway through that part of the project.
Yes, further questions?
Yeah, and another question, Mayor, too. There was a speaker mentioned that there was footpath issues in our municipality. I remember years ago we actually had a project where cameras went down every single footpath and took footage of all our footpaths and logged them. And that way we came up with a program of renewal. How has that program been progressing, and is that due to be done again, or when would it be done again?
Darren, would you be able to answer that question?
Yes, through you, Mayor. I am aware that we do regular inspections in terms of the footpath and the defects. Exactly when that is due to be done again, I'll have to take that on notice because I don't know exactly when that is to be done, but I do know there's been a considerable uplift in the budget over the past couple of years for footpath replacement.
Thank you. Further questions? Are there any other questions? Thank you. Alicia, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'd just like to confirm I welcome the reduction in the curbside waste to 2.75. However, I do question the rationale that was given to how that was going to impact the public, because if rates are charged to landowners and we have people that can't... I don't know why that turned itself off. explained, that if we can't afford bread, these are less likely to be the landowners. So how will council recommend to landowners to pass on those savings to the people in this severe rental strife that we're currently in? Because I don't think we're hitting the right note there. And I made submissions earlier in the year. I think it was the only one that made a submission to say the cost of living was too high and that council should react to that. So I am pleased to see it. It is that could we hit that area and sync up those arguments, please? And you might guess what my next topic of concern is. It's, and Mayor, you'll remember that I spoke to this in the previous meeting on the budget, and there was a question on notice. I think I might have asked the question 4 times now. What is the cost of the fit out of the library? That question was on notice. I haven't heard from anybody. Could I have the question answered, please? If we've got $16.5 million in the budget, what is the cost of the fit out, which is what we should have been funding from the public only, not the cost of the library, which should have been covered by the land swap? And is council paying Woolworths? Is Woolworths doing the fit out for the Rosanna Library partnership model? Also, just lastly, quick comment on the underlying deficit. I understand that the underlying deficit between the that's going to be 5.74, and I understand a lot of that is driven by the reduction in state funding. Could I also ask whether we can have some answers on what is the impact of these long-term loans that council has been paying off? Which year will they fall off the budget, and how will that impact the underlying deficit? Thank you.
Thank you. There's a couple of questions there for different departments. Tanya, could you answer the questions related to the budget and the loan, please?
Through you, Mayor, with the underlying deficit of 5.7 million, we will be in deficit position for the next few years. We have the reason that it is in the underlying deficit is because of mainly because of initiatives program that we have, which is related to the digital transformation strategy, and also we have some significant urban forest strategy initiatives that are being implemented. And so we're going to see the turnaround of that through future initiatives being more efficient, and then we'll revert back to a underlying surplus and not a deficit position. And with regards to the loans, we're paying approximately $1.5 million each year on our loans. We're currently around about 18 million. That will drop to about 13 million in the next over the 4 years. I don't know when it falls off, but it is a long-term loan. And we're not intending, we haven't got in our budget for future borrowing at this point in time, so it will continue to reduce, and the budget will show when it does fall off or reduce to zero.
Thank you. And there was a question about the cost of the internal fit out of the library and who was paying for that. Natasha, would you be able to respond to that, please?
Yeah, thank you, through you, Mayor. The indicative budget allocation for the internal fit out is 6.5 million. We're currently going through the tender process for the fixed actual price, but that's what we've allowed for as a budget allocation at this point. So the internal fit out is being undertaken entirely by council with our contractors. There's no relationship with Woolworths or their builder in relation to the internal fit out. So once we receive the warm shell building, which is being constructed by them, we become entirely responsible for the balance of the works.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Kavan Hill. Welcome, Kavan. You've got 2 minutes, wake up.
Thank you, Mayor. It's extremely disappointing that Banyule Council will achieve an underlying structural deficit of 5.74 million. Just a quick question, is this underlying structural deficit a cash structural deficit before depreciation, or is it after depreciation?
It's after depreciation.
Thank you. Unfortunately, the bad news continues because the forecast underlying structural deficits will continue for another 3 years. How will Council be able to fund the depreciation of its costly infrastructure assets in future when annually running significant underlying structural deficits? For example, the $3 million annually allocated for depreciated and dangerous footpath replacement is grossly inadequate. The obvious truism is that this Council has in the past few years lived beyond its means. Ratepayers can only conclude that this Council is willfully reluctant to aggressively curb its expenses. Adding insult to injury for ratepayers is this council's last hurrah to sell off $31.43 million worth of assets, refer the agenda attachment, and leaving a small gesture of less than $1 million of assets to sell in 2027-28. Does this signal that the city's crown jewels have been hocked to paper over previous spending largesse on virtue signalling and councillors' political pet projects? Bragg reminds interested external parties of the Mayor's message in the May-June Banyule banner, quote, "I am proud that Banyule is known for responsible financial management. Underlying structural deficits projected for the next 4 years does not translate to responsible financial management in the preceding period. To return to historical reality and restore his credibility, Bragg suggests the Mayor consider publicly rescinding this technically incorrect statement. The political spin does us no credit." This council has presided over an ever-growing division between the south and north. We've spent $38.3 million on the Ivanhoe Library, $20 million on the Balfour Community Hub, $16.5 million plus on the Rosanna Library and Pocket Park and Ivanhoe for $1.4 million. And in the north, Monty Hub, zilch, nothing, nil, zero. Is it a wonder that ratepayers in Sherborne are seething? So really, to ensure that we do not repeat mistakes in the decision-making process, we should honestly appraise all of the previous decisions that we've made that have brought us to this point so that valuable learnings can be transferred to all involved to enhance the prospect that mistakes will not be repeated. We all make
Kevin,
mistakes,
can you
and
sum
the
up,
council
please?
staff included. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I had a few questions of officers, if that's okay.
Yes, Councillor Grotti.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just in the papers, with regard to the EFT numbers, they're proposed to reduce from 700 forecast to 691 proposed. And I was just wanting to get a quick explanation for how that's occurring.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. There was a significant amount of work with officers in reconciling our EFT, and on Kevin's point, we have done a lot of work on our vacancy management and being able to assess what positions are on the ground and employed and not vacant, and through that work and understanding exactly the services that we're providing, we've been able to actually budget for the staff that are actually resourced up across the business units. So we've seen those efficiencies come through, and so we're managing that really tightly in regards to who we have delivering those services. And so through that reconciliation, we were able to say that not having vacant positions that were unfilled for a period of time we've been able to budget for that. And we're going to keep close monitoring and targeting to ensure that we don't go over that through some of the work that we're doing on the ground through vacancy, resource management, and also with ensuring that we keep tight rein on our agency and our consultancy budgets. And so that has been something that's been raised by Command for a while, and we believe that through that efficiency ongoing that we'll be able to manage within that target.
Thank you. Further questions? I'll look for a councillor to move a motion. Move Councillor Grotti, seconded Councillor Champion. Comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Happy to be moving the budget. Just in terms of some headline figures, we will be delivering a surplus of $7 million, a reduction in debt of $1 million, so debt will go down to $17.6 million. That is now less than 10% of total council revenues. When I was first elected 12 years ago, council debt was pushing 40% of council revenues, and we were in the inglorious position of having potentially to write to the State Treasurer at the time, seeking an exemption to go above that borrowing limit. So I'm very pleased that through the work that we've been able to do over many years, we've reduced council debt from 40% of operating revenue to under 10%. That's a good achievement. What I'd like to say is that there is always more work to do, And I think that our speakers have highlighted that. I think one of our speakers highlighted the fact that roads and footpaths and the opportunity for greater investment in renewal. I certainly hear that and I appreciate it. Another speaker mentioned about what Council's doing in terms of relief and support for renters. And I touched on that earlier in the rates hardship policy and the need for Council potentially to look at that in terms of what supports can be provided to our renters. Because at the moment we're really not servicing or supporting in a direct way that part of our community. And our third speaker touched on priorities of Council and some big investments that have been made with this by the Council and queried their value. We think that they've been good value investments for the community. We think on balance we're happy and pleased with what we've been able to achieve. But I would never discount members of the community saying that they've came to a different value judgment. And that's the benefit of having people attend the gallery and raising their submissions and engaging with the Council. And I'm always open to hearing that feedback and having a respectful conversation. This budget has been set in the context of a cost of living crisis. There is not a single person that I know that is not doing it tough at the moment in crisis situation, many in crisis. That is why through this budget we are not lifting the rates above 2.75%. No other I would be surprised if any other council in this state is doing the same, because they all separate out the waste charge and rate and have set them at higher levels. We've made a commitment as a council to respond to the cost of living crisis and keep it low. Our rates hardship policy, $550 off rates for those that are doing it hardest. Fees and charges, many of them keeping it CPI rate or lower. So we hear the issues and challenges that are happening in the community, and we've attempted to deliver a budget that responds to that. And finally, the final comment I'd like to make is that this council is in a stable financial position. And that's important not only for the community, but our staff. Because unfortunately at the moment, through the private sector economy and many parts of government, things are very challenging, things are very difficult. What I'm proud about is that we're delivering a budget that gives confidence to our staff, gives confidence to them that they can turn up to work and continue to deliver good services and good infrastructure, and to know that the job is there because the council's running a tight ship and we've got our budgets and finances in order. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? Councillor Champion.
Thanks, Mayor. Over the last few weeks, I've been reading or hearing suggestions about Council's budget and responsibilities. And I've been hearing and reading, interestingly, predominantly, got to increase your rates, Alison, increase your rates, and Council has to cut services. So you increase your rates, cut services, focus on roads, rates and rubbish. Okay. So if Council increases our rates and we use that funding only for roads, and roads is roads, it's not footpaths or nature strips. So if we use that funding for only our local roads and improving the rubbish collection and everything about waste, there are no staff working under a community and wellbeing directorship. There are no staff in that department. There are limited staff and assets and city services. There are limited staff in city development, and there are limited staff in corporate services because they're not needed, because not all of them look after roads and rubbish. There are no parks. There are no public open spaces. There are no sporting ovals. There are no events like Twilight Sounds, Movies on the Move, our volunteer celebration. There's no Malahang Festival, no Echo Fest, no LGBTIQA+ Midsummer Festival. There's no things like Women in Business, networking events. There are no programs like the Inclusive Employment Program, which is being taken up by several other councils in Victoria. There are no small business support programs. Small businesses actually employ the majority of people. There are no food supply outlets like Bansick or Green Hills Neighbourhood House, for example. There are no kinders. There's no public childcare. There are no buildings like Watermark, Ivanhoe Library Cultural Hub, Belfield Community Hub. There are no libraries at all. And a lot of these buildings supply a host of social and physical and artistic aspects of our lives. So if council is required to increase rates and cut services, there's a lot that we're not doing that you love, and you tell us you love it. I'll leave that with you. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? Councillor Di Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, with regards to this budget, one of the things that's really not picked up, I don't think, is the decrease in state and federal grant. They've reduced. That is there, isn't it? But how much it has reduced by over the current years. So it's reduced significantly. Since COVID, pretty much, it just was on a decline, and we've had to manage that as well. So that comes off the bottom line too, or gets added to the bottom line. And one of the things we did do is decrease debt in a time frame when interest rates were low, and then as they went up, we weren't subjected to as much interest. And we have been very prudent in not getting into debt or into any further debt. So major projects that we delivered, such as the Ivanhoe Cultural Hub, even through the process of the Greensborough offices, now moving into the Rosanna Library, etc., no debt on any of those. So it would be a bit of a disadvantage in the years to come if the community has to pay off interest on projects like that. So we've been very prudent with regards to that. But this whole budget process, we got, I think, on close to 100 submissions. We did listen to public submissions too at one of the sessions as well. I think the landscape has changed. State government legislation doesn't necessarily need councils to go through that whole process of listening to the community with regards to their submissions to the budget, etc. But we still spoke as a councillor group and said we wanted to do that. We put out a draft budget, which was also not something that most councils are doing as well. So I think that's very responsible on behalf of the community, so the community can understand what will be spent, where it will be spent. But lastly, one of the things that when we do look at a bit of a budget which is going, or is in a little bit of the red, one of the things I've noticed over the recent years with regards to speaking to other councillors from regional or inner city councils as well, and also staff, one of the things they do if they want to do something in the budget, they're looking to pull something else out. So the conversation goes, okay, we want to do this, but what has to come out to facilitate that so we can do it? We don't really want to fall into that trap. We want to be making sure that we're supplying what needs to be supplied, giving value for money, value for rate dollar, and making sure we're being very responsible with regards to how everything's being spent and managed. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? Councillor Neeling.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, as expected, we need to meet the needs of the community. And in terms of services, in terms of maintaining and improving and providing capital, the community does expect and it does deserve high quality services, well-delivered programs, new initiatives that meets the needs of today and meets the needs of the future. Councils across Victoria have been hit hard with escalating costs of materials, contracts are coming in over budget, projects are well over budget. You don't have to be on the MAV board to know that this is the case across the sector. As Melbourne grows, so with housing, with more cars on the road, bringing in more people, more infrastructure and services are in demand. Your feedback on our Capital Works program, revenue rating plan, council plan, all of our plans has been critical at this time. Residents often ask, where do our rates go? I think Councillor Champion covered that in a lot of detail on this. This shows that council invests in our parks, our playgrounds, our gardens, footpaths, sporting grounds, facilities, pavilions, roads, drainage, and that's only the infrastructure part. So, through our digital transformation that's happening, we're working on improving operational efficiencies. Working collaboratively with other councils is a really important way forward. We have to continue that. And, you know, working with other registered bodies is also a way forward. Just to finish and not to repeat what others have said, just thank you to the residents for providing feedback, including the 7th of March forum, and all of the residents that have contacted us directly as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? I'll make a few comments. It's fine to put a small business lens on our budget, but we're not a business. We're not here to make a profit for shareholders or investors. We're a council. We're here to provide services for people. That's our role. And sure, we have to be efficient, but we have to consider the environmental impacts of our decisions. We have to consider the impact on groups, on individuals. And I think this council does a fantastic job. And as the mayor, I have the privilege to go around and I see people in the library of all ages sharing the past, learning from each other and making plans for the future in our libraries. I see young people in our inclusive employment program and I talk to their parents and about the lifelong change that's made to their employment opportunities and how they will now have a job through our program. Can you say that provides value for money, or on a cost-benefit analysis, does it work? Probably not, but it makes a big difference in our community and to those people. And I see the tears of joy from people that have been living in cars for several years that move into a safe house built in Belfield from a project that this council ran. And I think that is the biggest achievement of this council term, the fact that we were able to deliver that. And I see our neighbourhood houses where people that are marginalised go and they have programs and they run those programs and people make lifelong friends, and to many people our neighbourhood houses are their life and they are fantastic places. And then I look at as Councillor Champion talked about, our food relief programs and the organisations that run that. But then 3081 Angels, who provide goods for people that have babies, who wouldn't have had those goods otherwise. And all the other community organisations that do so much to help the people that are really struggling. And in our sporting clubs, the support we give sporting clubs to make sure that they have a safe place for kids to play a sport and build community, and we all know the benefits of that. But also this council's work with the First Nations people, and we have a place for them to gather and learn off each other and where we can learn and how we can understand each other better and actually work towards real reconciliation. And I think this council's gone a long way there. And then we have our arts program, which is our heritage. Our heritage is wrapped up in our arts, and the artists today are the gift we give to the future. And we need to support the arts. Is there a dollar value attached to that? Is it cost-benefit analysis? No, but it's something we have to do. And then our actions on climate change, which have been significant and have changed the way this council operates, and we hope that will change the way our community operates. Because if we continue on the path we've been on, we will not have a planet like it is now. So I'm very proud of what this council's done there as well. And we talked about our, the hardship policy. People that are doing it tough, that I think people that are doing it tough are people that are renting, because rent's gone up enormously and 30% of our residents are renting. What can we be doing for them? How can we help them have that security that we all need? So this has been a tough budget, but I always think, what price do you put on having a united, engaged and active community that looks after each other and make sure everyone feels they belong and have a place here? And I don't think you can put a dollar value on that. So being financially responsible is very important, but caring for people is more important. And I think this council does a great job of that, so I will be supporting this budget tonight. Would Councillor Garotti like to have a right of reply?
Yeah, Mayor, I just wanted to thank the staff It's an enormous process that they did throughout the public consultation, developing the draft budget, having amendments to that budget, and now final budget. So thank you, Tanya, and your team, and we really do appreciate the work you do.
Thank you. I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to item 3.5, Council Plan 2021 to 2025, Proposed Annual Action Plan. There are no speakers. There is a Council Officer recommendation. We'll look for someone to move. Councillor Di Pasquale, seconded Councillor Neely. Comment?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So the fourth year of the plan. So this is where the budget is, which was adopted last year and into this year as well, is planned out in a document so that one doesn't have to necessarily go to the budget document. They can go down. It's divided into directorate. It's also which area of council is responsible, and measures as well, outcomes and measures too. So a very public document. One, if members of the community get a chance to have a read of it, it's very worthwhile. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? Councillor Neely.
Thank you, Mayor. This document is continually refined. Councillors, community and staff provide feedback to ensure that we are meeting community need, which is a bit of a theme for this evening. This is different from a capital works plan in that it delivers initiatives, community programs and other strategies that aren't necessarily focused around bricks and mortar. An example is delivering community exhibitions, public art, grants, festivals, programs and events, in this example particularly in Heidelberg Park. Advocating for major transport projects, very important function. Improving pedestrian access at priority locations across the municipality. New change rooms. I mentioned one in my end of town at Anthony Beale Reserve for growing teams, female-friendly environments, as well as the same happening at Greensborough Park. So it's a really good document. It's also good to see that the community who provided feedback indicated a strong support for this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to item 3.6, Cemetery Trust, Banyule Cemetery Trust Operational Report. There are no speakers. Look for a councillor to move a motion. Move Councillor Grotti, seconded Councillor Neely. Comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just we'll move, but with a few amendments. One, as is, to note Department of Health undertook a performance audit of Council's Cemetery Trust as it undertakes an audit of a random selection of cemeteries each year for the period 21-22. Note that DH final audit report raised several positive observations regarding the governance, management and operations of the Trust, as well as 2 opportunities for improvement. Note that one of the opportunities for improvement concerned risk management, and noting rather than creating a separate risk management framework and register for the Trust, management's asked to consider integrating risk management of the Trust within Council's own comprehensive risk management framework and reporting. Refer the DH final audit report to the Audit and Risk Committee for consideration and request that the 2 opportunities for improvement be monitored by the Audit and Risk Committee through their audit status reporting. And point 6, formally thank the outgoing Cemeteries Administrator, Mrs. Jan Richardson, for her impressive and long-standing service to both the Trust and to Council, and to congratulate her on her retirement. Thank you, Mayor.
I don't know what you're laughing at, but is there a seconder for that motion? Oh, sorry. Councillor Neely, would you like to speak? Sorry. I've lost it, sorry. Councillor Grotti, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I think comments are almost just captured in those additions to the motion, and then just the importance of using our Audit and Risk Committee for all elements of council business, including the Trust. The Trust is part of council now, and we've embedded it in there. And let's use our existing risk management framework. Let's use the Audit and Risk Committee. Let's efficiently run the Trust and not duplicate things when council already provides those services. but we really did want to take this opportunity as a council to thank and congratulate Jan for 30 years of service to our city and really for a terrific job in managing the trust. The trust is in surplus, 1.3 million, I believe. Every year, at least I've been here, we've budgeted for a deficit, but we somehow achieve a surplus. So well done and congratulations, and you certainly leave the trust in a very good position for this community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comments? Councillor Neely?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to congratulate Jan on her hard work. I have to admit I've learned a lot of jargon. There's a lot of jargon associated with cemeteries. And any question that we needed answered, Jan could answer, and her knowledge was very impressive. So good luck, Jan, on your future endeavours. Thank you.
Further comment? I'll just say I'll talk about the great operating report here, but I'd also like to thank Jan. She's been a great officer, but she's also been a friend, and I remember she took me on a 2-day learning course on how to operate a cemetery, which I never thought I would do, but I did. And she does work so incredibly hard, but what the very impressive thing is that when someone has a death in their family, every person you speak to that deals with Jan during that very difficult period in their life always commends her on her dedication, but her attention to detail and her caring way that she looks after the people that she deals with. And she's been a very great asset to this council over many, many periods. And I know she's a local. I know she's a great Collingwood supporter. And I wish her all the best, and thanks for all your years of dedication and friendship. So well done, Jan. So there are a few more reports in the Cemetery Trust. We're not going to do this every report. I know I haven't voted on it yet, but sorry, Alison. I'll put that, all those in favour. That's carried. So well done, Jan, thank you. We'll move on to the Banyule Cemetery Trust financial statements. There are no speakers. There is a report. Look for someone to move. Moved Councillor Garotti, seconded Councillor Di Pasquale. Comment? I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. The Annual Cemetery Trust fees 2024-2025. There are no speakers. I'll look for someone to move. Moved Councillor Neely, seconded Councillor Mitzinikos. Comment? Comment? I thought someone might make that comment we made in the pre. No, I can't. So we'll put this in the name of Councillor Neely. All those in favour? That is carried. And we'll move on to the Banyule Cemetery Trust budget 24-20 to 2025 and forecast. There are no speakers. I'll put that. All those. Sorry. Could someone please move? Move, Councillor.
Through you, Mayor, we've just had a bit of a technical issue with the PowerPoint. So if you don't mind, we'll just pull up the officer recommendation on the screen. Just give us one moment.
Okay, thank you. Oh, okay. So we right to go now?
Should we just read out the recommendation while we're waiting?
I'll just ask the CEO to read out the recommendation for this item, if that's all right.
Through you, Mayor. So it's item 3.9, Banyule Cemeteries Trust Budget 2024 to 2025 and 10-year forecast. And the recommendation is that Council 1 adopt the Banyule Cemeteries Trust Operation Budget 2024-25 and 10-year budget forecast. to endorse the CPI fee increase of 3.8% to all fees over $50 as from the 1st of July 2024. And 3, note that the cemetery's budget has now been included in the whole of council budget.
Can I have a councillor move that motion, please? Move Councillor Grotti, seconded Councillor Neely. Comment? Put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to 3.10, Council Cemetery Trust Protection Data Security Plan. There's no speakers. Could I ask the councillor to move? Moved. As per the papers, Councillor Di Pasquale, seconded Councillor Neely. Comment? I'll put that. Oh, was it? Are we able to get it on the screen? Ah, thank you. Oh.
Do I need to read it? Yep. So through you, Mayor, I'll read the recommendation for the gallery. So it's item 3.10, Banyule Cemeteries Trust Protective Data Security Plan Attestation. And it is that the recommendation is that Council 1 attests that the Banyule Cemeteries Trust has the same shared reporting criteria as Banyule City Council regarding obligations under the Privacy and Data Protection Act 2024, PDP, and the Victorian Protective Data Security Plan. Oh, it's up on the screen now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry to the gallery for it's not working as well, but it normally does. But there is the motion. Could I have someone move that, please? Councillor Di Pasquale, seconded Councillor Neely. Comment?
No, as is.
There are no comments. I'll put that. All those in favour? And with that, we say farewell to Jan. It'd also be remiss to welcome Claire. So welcome, Claire. I hope you have another successful 30 years at Banyule. And I'm sure you'll enjoy it just as much. So thank you, ladies. And thanks for coming tonight, Jan. It was very nice to say good night to you. We'll see you at the grand final. We'll move on to item 3.11, submission to the motion to the MAV State Conference held on the 23rd of August. There are no speakers. Look for Councillor Neely, seconded. I'll second it as I'm attending. Comment, Councillor Neely?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Councils have the opportunity to submit business to the Municipal Association of Victoria, the MAV. The MAV has a State Council meeting this year on the 23rd of August. So we're putting forward a motion to the State Council meeting seeking the MAV to write to the Minister for Environment to form a new body that provides the collective procurement contract services management recommended by the Victorian Auditor General report, and that this body is funded by the state government's waste levy. So as we know, waste management is a service provided to our community. It's one that's at the forefront every single week. We need to minimise costs for residents and work with other councils to enable collective procurement. And we mentioned that earlier, that the way forward for councils is to work together to make things a lot more sustainable. We need to enable staff to be trained in this area. And local government has lost access to support when the Waste Resource Recovery Group disbanded. This motion demands access to the skills that were acquired from that body. So that's why I'm putting this forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I will say a few words. I will be attending that meeting as well, and I was on the board of the waste management groups that did use, and this is one of the big successes of that group, that we did amalgamate a lot of councils together and go offer a joint procurement offer to landfill operators and recycling operators, so we'd leverage a much better outcome for those councils. Unfortunately, that's all gone by since Cycling Victoria came into being, and now councils have to go and negotiate on an individual basis, which has really reduced our ability to bargain and get a much better price. So this motion put to the MAB was trying to re-establish that group so we can go off and have a joint bargaining agreement, which will get us a much better price. So I'll support this tonight. So I'll put that in the name of Councillor Emily. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on item 3.12, proposed modern slavery statement. There is one speaker, Melissa Murphy-Webster, who will address the council in person and speaking in favour of the recommendation. Welcome, Melissa. You have 2 minutes.
I'm glad to see that this has been put in place by Banyule Council, as I've been voicing concerns about the procurement of specific items for some time. With a push towards carbon neutral, I felt that manufacturing, resources, logistics and slavery have been overlooked. Human rights in countries like Afghanistan, Democratic Republic of Congo and China are rife as they dig for minerals such as cobalt, lithium and nickel. 74% of mined supplies for batteries come from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and China are rife as they dig for minerals such as cobalt, lithium, Democratic of Congo, where 40,000 Congolese children hand dig cobalt. It is thought that Afghanistan sit on $1 trillion worth of lithium and other minerals needed for manufacturing. The country is well known for its mistreatment of women and LGBTIQA+ people. In China, more than 1 million Uighur of Xinjiang are under forced labour to produce polysilicon. It's a key component to solar panels, which account for 40% of the world's supply. In addition, human rights in China are appalling, where there is intense surveillance, involuntary sterilisation, torture, sexual abuse, human trafficking, and other rights abuse. The CCP is responsible for millions of deaths against the Falun Gong people, harvesting their organs for nearly 25 years, as well as jailing or disappearing any dissenters to the party. I actually just literally read too that there are other countries that are taking stances in regards to this, and they're putting in legislations to prevent this type of human rights abuses coming out of the CCP, but Australia hasn't followed suit as yet. I look forward to Banyule Council being more transparent in the overall impact in regards to internally to projects and purchases. Thank you.
Thank you. I look for a council to move a motion. Move Councillor Garotti, seconded Councillor Neely. Comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Very happy to be recommending that the council adopt the modern slavery agreement or statement. So modern slavery statements now are commonplace or mandated for large corporates in Australia and for large government entities. It's a federal government requirement to try and drive integrity in the supply chain for large corporates and large government entities. Councils thus far are not caught up in that framework, and in adopting this statement, we will, from what I understand, be the first council in this country to have a modern slavery agreement statement. What that means is that we're putting the discipline on ourselves and our procurement team in particular to really review and validate the integrity of all of our suppliers. Now, it might be a local cleaning business provider to make sure that they're complying with EBA requirements and staffing requirements and OH&S and workplace and ensuring the integrity of their operations. But as one of our speakers mentioned as well, council does procure things such as solar panels and electric vehicles and plant and equipment, and a lot of that does come from overseas. So this puts a discipline now, and indeed a requirement upon ourselves to review where those things are coming from, to inspect the supply chain, to do as much as possible to provide a confidence back to our community that we're not procuring things that slave labour has been used to input, that unfair and unjust practices have contributed to. And I think that that's just basics now. I think that our community demands that. I think our community wants to know that when there's solar panels on the roof that the electric vehicles that are being driven around, that the contractors that are engaged, that they're all decent suppliers with integrity. And if we find issues, and as we uncover issues, I expect our officers, led by this council, to take action and to make sure that we do not engage those suppliers. So I'm very proud of this policy. I'm very proud of the leadership position that we're taking as a council on this. And I think if every council across this country looks at what we're doing and takes a similar stance, collectively as local government, we can drive better integrity throughout supply chains and deliver better outcomes globally through collective procurement. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm horrified that 50 million people globally are living and working in slave-like conditions, and that the estimate in the report showed that 40,000 people are in Australia. So we cannot have this. We can, as a council, committing to the prevention of modern slavery through the prevention, detection and removal methods is really good practice, and it is a very humane thing to do, and I support this thoroughly.
Thank you. Further comment? Councillor Di Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this has a potential of being a very difficult space to be delivering services in with regards to council services, because if we're supplying things to the community with regards to things like solar panels, etc., which have been sourced or aren't being manufactured well, recently we had a recommendation come to us where we were looking into a company, Mayor, where the company had just come out of administration, and we were unaware that they were in administration, out of administration, so that's a risk. We generally hear as councillors things later on in the piece, and it will happen somewhere down the track. The media will jump on this, that we've been sourcing things, unethically. But we need to take a stand. Unfortunately, the way that the West has been operating over many years now is they will go into a country where labour is very cheap, they will supply to the world, and then they'll move to another country when that country increases its wages and increases its standards, and it will just move from country to country. The world can't continue living like that. We need to get back to a state of where we were many years ago as Australia, where we need to make things in Australia. We need that whole campaign back Australian-made. We need that green and gold on products. We need to be shopping for those. We need the state and federal government to bring back the Australian-made policy, and let's do it right. Because if we had have done that, going through COVID would have been much easier, because we wouldn't have been left short of supply chain things from China. And going forward into the future, we can secure the jobs and financial economy of our country and our children's future as well. So I'm going to be voting for this evening. It's not going to be easy to foresee this in the coming future, but yeah, I think we do need to take a stand. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. A further comment? I'll just make a few comments here. It's excellent that Council's doing this, because we do have a large procurement arm, but it's more of an example to people. Every resident purchases things. We only got to look at the fast fashion industry and where all those goods are made, how much they're worn, and when they're chucked out, they're just the mess they make. And if you look at the tons of clothing that is just only worn once or twice and then thrown out, most of it is now made from plastic and very resource intensive, but also very, very cheap on the back of people working extremely hard for not very much. And when you can buy a cotton T-shirt in Australia for $5 and you think the retailer's making profit off that as well, makes you wonder how much the person that sewed it together is actually getting paid. So, I'll support this tonight, and I think it's something that it's good that Council's done this, but I think as a nation and as people we do need to address it as well, because we could change it. I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to 3.13, awarding the contract 1357 to 2024 contract for minor asphalt work panels. Look for someone to move. Move. Councillor Di Pasquale, seconded Councillor Champion. Comment?
No comment, Mayor.
Comment? Okay. I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. Move on to item 3.14, 59 Swanson Street, Heidelberg Heights. Notice of intention to sell. Hearing of submissions. They've been the submitters. There's no request to speak, and none of the submitters have decided to speak. So I'll look for someone to move a motion. Move Councillor De Morelos, seconded Councillor Champion. Comment? Comment. I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to item 3.15, CEO Employment Matters Committee dates. There is no speakers. Look for someone to move. Move Councillor Di Pasquale, seconded Councillor Champion. Comment?
No, Mayor.
Comment? I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. Jeez. Since Jan left, things are flying. We'll move on to 3.16, record of council meetings. There are no speakers. Look for someone to move. Move Councillor Champion, seconded Councillor Mitzinikos. Comment? Put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We've done 4.1. We'll do 4.2, draft community local laws. There are no speakers. Move Councillor Neely, seconded Councillor...
There is an amendment. Yep. I'll read this on behalf of Councillor McKern. So we're going to leave item 1 as is, and number 2 adding... Oh, just disappeared. Okay, the size changed, so I'm coming to this one. Okay, number 2 that relates to the draft local law be advertised in at least 2 editions of the Banyule Banner, and consultation to include 3 in-person workshops and 1 online workshop throughout the consultation period to allow in-depth small group discussions on the various proposed clauses within the local law. So moved.
Move Councillor Neely, seconded Councillor Garotti. Comment?
Yes, in the spirit of Councillor McKern's amendment, I believe that this is highlighting the in-person sessions, that these will form part of the consultation, and the online session for those members of the community who can't attend the in-person session. It's great to hear that following the review of our local law that it was in good order and meeting most of the community's needs. There are some really good inclusions proposed in the draft, like the new shopping trolley provisions, very exciting, some tree bonds and opportunities for planting on nature strips. They're just 3 I thought would be points of discussion that people would find interesting. But yeah, happy to move this on her behalf. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Further comment? Councillor Garotti?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. It's a really good opportunity through the review of the local law to address some deficiencies in what's there at the moment. One of the things, there were 2 things that objectives I was really looking for out of this. One was dealing with poorly maintained and unkept properties and nature strips, and particularly those owned by landlord based. We're really strengthening the laws in this now in terms of what's going out for the first time ever. If this is adopted, and really looking forward to community feedback on this, council will be able to crack down. We'll be able to crack down on landlords that are not doing the right thing, on landlords that are not helping to maintain their properties, that are allowing the nature strips to overgrow. Because we know that there are pockets in this city, particularly in areas of Bundoora and in areas of Heidelberg West, particularly where there's a high proportion of student accommodation, there are challenges there. These local laws respond to that and give the council some teeth to be able to respond and act. So very excited about that addition to the local law. The second area that I was really hoping to address through this process was vaping. But unfortunately, I think everyone now knows the horrors of vaping. In Watsonia, there's a vape store there in Watsonia. We've got 5 primary schools in the area, Loyola College in the area, and it's a disgrace, to be honest, that we have a vape store that is in such close proximity to schools. I just want to assure the community that we did every single thing that we could through the lawyers, and we called in expert external lawyers to see what can we do as a local council to get things in the local law to respond to vaping, to put restrictions in place so that vape stores can't operate within a certain radius of schools. Our hands are literally tied as a council on this. There were some very positive statements that were made by the federal government last year, and we were really excited about it, but we need action now. So this local law is responding to areas that we have teeth and things that are in our control and purview, but one massive gap, and I hear it throughout the community. What are you doing about vaping, Rick? Why are you allowing vaping stores to operate? We can't address that through our local laws, but I'm asking everyone in this community to work with us in advocacy. Federal government has got some good plans. They made a good announcement last year, but now we need action and follow through because the risk for our kids is too great. Thank you, Mayor.
Further comment?
Mayor, just to formalise point 2 a little bit more, it doesn't make, could we formalise a little bit with regards to, it states at least, advertise at least, in at least 2 editions of the Banyule Banner, so that means 2 or more. What time implications, could we be more formal in stating that it will be in, say, July Banner and the next banner after that?
Through you, Mayor, I understand that it will be appearing imminently in the next banner that's released, which is, I think, technically called the June banner, but is distributed in early July, and it will also be in the banner distributed in August.
So perhaps for the mover and the seconder, if we formalise that for people to be expecting it in those, maybe a recommendation would be to change that to naming those banners. So the July banner and the August banner.
Yep, happy to add that in.
Yeah, I'm happy with that as well.
Okay. Thank you. Any further comment? I'll make a few comments. I do agree totally with what Councillor Grottis has raised. I read the other day that there's, in the under 18 group, there's more kids that now vape than smoke cigarettes, which is just shockingly alarming when you think that all the issues around smoking, what we've done to reduce smoking rates, and now vaping rates has vaping slipped through under the guise of a method of allowing people to give up smoking cigarettes, and now it's people are vaping exclusively, and it has become a real problem now, young people, and yet we've allowed this to happen when you think all of the lessons we learnt from smoking, and we're in this situation. So I hope, but you get the feeling that the horse has already bolted to some degree, but hopefully and this council has no power to do anything about it, but it's disappointing. And you go to every shopping centre and there's a vape shop now, and they look to be attracting younger people. They're bright, well lit, and very appealing to young people. So it is quite alarming. So I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to item 4.3, Banyule Scouts Year 3 and 4 Funding Outcome Report. There are no speakers. I'll look for a council to move a motion, a slightly amended motion. Councillor Grotti, you have an amendment?
Yeah, you do.
I'll move it, yeah. Just points 1, 2 and 3 as is. 4, work with Banyule Scouts and Scouts Victoria to identify additional projects that can be delivered in the 2024-25 financial year. Note the additional allocation of $100K for the Banyule Scouts for the 2024-25 budget as resolved by Council at item 3.4 at its meeting 24 June 2024, noting the provision of this allocation is that the program delivery issues with local Scouts and Scouts Victoria are promptly addressed. And then point 6, receive an evaluation report and future funding models report upon completion of the full 4-year program and its outcomes, so that future funding models can be considered during budget deliberations associated with the preparation of the 2025-26 budget. Thank you, Mayor.
Moved Councillor Grotti, seconded Councillor Champion. Comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So a couple of years ago, Council resolved for a 4-year program to fund $100,000 per annum for capital infrastructure upgrades to the Scouts. We did that just in recognition of the fact that there wasn't a funding source for them to do that. There's 13 Scout groups in Banyule and all of them do a terrific job. In resolving that, we did also look for funding contributions from state and federal levels, and we've had that. I certainly know in the Bundoora context, state government has contributed $100,000, and we've also received federal government grants there as well for solar panels and batteries. So the program has been successful in getting council funding into Scouts facilities, and also its objective of encouraging other funding partners. But what we've found is that there has been some delivery delays because of the way things work with Scouts Victoria. And so the amended motion there basically makes sure that the Scouts don't lose out, that they lock in the $100,000 for all the 4 years, including this financial year and next, with a commitment there to try and work through those delivery issues with the Scouts and Scouts Victoria. At the end of next financial year, a report will then come back to Council on what we do going forward. But I thought it was very important that we lock in that funding, 4 years worth of funding, $400,000 from Council to our Scouts for the very good work that all of them do in our city. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for the comment.
This would be something else that council couldn't support if we only focused on roads, rates and rubbish, wouldn't it? Just a thought. Support the Scouts, always support the Scouts. They create future leaders.
Absolutely. I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We move on to item 5.1, the adoption of the proposed Towards Zero Waste Management Plan. We have 2 speakers. The first speaker is Pippa Griffiths. Pippa, did you go home?
I believe it's a written statement, Mayor.
She what, sorry?
It's a written statement.
Oh, sorry. Oh, it is. Pippa was here before, I thought. Yes. Natasha, would you mind reading Pippa's statement?
I'd be delighted to, Mayor, thank you. I'm reading this statement on behalf of Pippa Griffith. This policy is a good start, but some things would improve it significantly. The first is delivering on Council's commitment to the circular economy. If you're really committed to that, and it is mentioned a number of times, you must be closing the loop through purchasing and using the things recyclers are making. This is fundamental in encouraging recycling. It might be stating the obvious, but these businesses need outlets for their products. Without this support, they cannot survive. Support circular initiatives across other business units is the community consultation report, but does not appear in the action plan. Council must build into its action plan that all procurements actively seek out and seriously consider products with significant recycled content ahead of more conventional, less sustainable products. One such example is repless street furniture and infrastructure products. You should work with the BCAT committee in achieving this. Secondly, Council should refuse to accept products from suppliers that come packaged in polystyrene or other packaging that is not easily and realistically recycled. This is consistent with Strategic Direction 1, avoid waste generation, and will incentivise suppliers to find more sustainable packaging materials. Thirdly, when assessing the disposal of council assets such as furniture, options for repair, reuse and donation or recycling are considered seriously before these things become landfill. The plan is focused on reducing waste in the first place, which is good, and it should also close the loop for the recycling that happens with the remaining waste.
Thank you. We have a second speaker, Kavan Hill. Sorry to wake you.
Thank you, Mayor. In relation to the Towards Zero Waste Management Plan, it is appropriate only to 50% of the Banyule ratepayers who are not being ripped off by the curbside and public waste rates. Bragg has prosecuted this issue with council over the last 2 years to no avail. Banyule is the only Victorian council with waste rates instead of charges, the result being that 50% of rateable properties, that is higher than mean property value, pay increasingly more for this service based upon the COV of their property. Why would these ratepayers want to be deluded about achieving zero waste with their rubbish bins when paying through the nose for this service? What financial incentives are there for ratepayers to reduce their rubbish? Why not fill the rubbish bins to the brim to get value for their waste rates? These ratepayers already pay a lion's share for other council services based on their property values, and I'm talking about places like Ivanhoe, Eaglemont and some parts of Heidelberg. There is nothing more or nothing less than politics of envy. And finally, will council tell us how much it's trying to recover and what it would be per household? BCC has already used a fixed surcharge of $125, so it has set a precedent. Bragg argues that BCC should charge all properties with the same rubbish collection cost and move more cost recovery to that system, but still within the 2.75% state government cap. Next year, CY25, could be a good time to do this, as lower valued property prices are likely to surge more than the higher valued properties. Conclusion, democracy at its best. BCC spends all year round preparing its budget and the public are given 2 weeks to comment on a complicated, extensive document. Then Council generously allows us 2 minutes for further commentary before adoption. This is not really fair and doesn't represent best practice government. Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Kevin? If this is not best practice governance, do you get the opportunity to speak at a federal parliament or a state parliament?
Sorry?
Do you get the opportunity, if you're saying this is not best practice in governance,
Yeah.
do you get the opportunity to speak at a state or a federal level?
Yes.
In parliament?
Do I? No, I don't, but our proxies do. The members of parliament do, people we talk to.
And are you aware that the request to speak is something that other councils allow to happen at their councils?
Yeah, I do.
The majority don't.
I know.
Thank you.
Thanks for the privilege.
Councillor Grotti has a question as well.
Yeah, Kevin, I had a follow-up question. Just the observation made that on average properties in Ivanhoe, Eaglemont, etc., that are higher rated pay more with a rate, a waste rate rather than a charge.
CIB, yeah.
Obviously, wouldn't that provide them a greater incentive to reduce their waste?
No. How do you think they made their money?
I'm shocked. I would have thought people on struggling on a budget and the lower. Sorry. We'll look for someone to move a motion, please.
Move, Mayor.
Moved as per the papers. Seconded. Councillor Grotti. Comment?
No.
Comment?
Oh, look, I think we've been tempted into it. I'm quite proud actually of the way that we've set our rating structure, including the rate for waste services than a charge. And I just know that for the average household, and particularly in Bundoora, in Heidelberg West, across the north of this city, they would have, if we had have gone down a different pathway, some of the more vulnerable people in our community, including in Bundoora, would be paying another $150 a year in rates. So the decision that we took 3 years ago has arguably saved those ratepayers $600. And we have so I'm proud of that decision. It's consistent with the way that the general rate is applied, which is based on the value of property. But the reality is that we understand that there's guidance from Local Government Victoria and the Minister for Local Government that is likely to strongly encourage, if not direct, councils from next financial year to adopt the charge. So that'll be a decision and consideration for future councils. But certainly when we went through a principles-based approach as a council, and we looked at a whole range of things from efficiency, effectiveness and equity, and particularly equity for our lower income households, I feel that we made the right decision there as a council. Thank you, Mayor.
Further comment? I'll say a few things here. Interesting what the Speaker brought up about polystyrene. It always astounds me that there's only 3 factories basically in the world that make televisions. The ones that they send to Europe, the European Union has banned polystyrene as a packaging. So the ones sent to Europe get packed in cardboard. The ones that come to Australia come in polystyrene. And the reason being that polystyrene is actually slightly cheaper and it weighs slightly less than cardboard, completely unrecyclable. But the manufacturers choose it because they save us a very small amount on shipping costs. And our government has failed to respond to that, and it would be very simple to do as the European Union and most other countries in the world is just ban polystyrene from packaging, because if you buy a new television, you get a bin full of polystyrene and there's nothing you can do with it. And the other one the Speaker also talked about was furniture, and it upsets me that, why can't we recycle, why can't we reupholster furniture? That doesn't happen anymore. You can buy a house full of furniture for $1,000. It lasts you a couple of years and you throw it out the front, and it's completely unrecyclable. It's completely, you can't rebuild it, you can't do anything, you just got to chuck it out because it's so badly made. And yet as a community we demand our goods to be extremely cheap, and that's what we get. And the government have levers here as well. They could produce it as they've done for televisions. Every time we buy a new television, it costs you $20, which that money is used to recycle your old television. We could do exactly the same for furniture as we have done for tyres. So, and even though it's not a perfect system, I understand what Kavan's saying. Not everyone that lives in a rich house has a high income. But I'm also very proud of the fact that this council were brave to put in the waste rate, because if we didn't, and you had a $5 million property on the boulevard paying $5,000 rates, your waste charge is approximately 10% of your rates, your rates would drop $500, implement a $200 charge across every. So basically, someone in that property worth $5 million would get a $300 reduction in their rates, and someone in a smaller $500,000 unit in Bundoora would get an increase in their rates. So I think it's a very equitable way of splitting out the waste charge. And I'll also note that Molenbeek, in their budget, they increased their waste charge, which is a flat charge to everyone, by 6.7% to get full cost recovery for their waste system. So I think this council's done extremely well. So I'll put that. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move on to item 6.1. Adoption of the proposed public realm framework. There are 2 speakers. Michelle Jarvis. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you. The aim to have strategic directions and high standards to achieve high quality, sustainable, appropriately activated spaces for both civic and private commercial or developer-led spaces is essential in this era of overdevelopment and dense housing. The new public realm framework will inform council and the developer for improved amenity, wellbeing and livability. Discussion on the types of public realms was useful, and we should never forget how useful and beneficial it is to maintain, improve and upgrade existing infrastructure, and to improve its safety and attractiveness and its usability and fit for purposeness. As is evident in the recent council upgrade works for playground in Montmorency, and another project that could really benefit from the public realm approach is the Watermark precinct itself. The access areas, which apart from a pedestrian walkway, is essentially closed off from its surrounds. Regarding the public framework itself, there are still definitely areas for improvement, and, for example, more meaningful consultation. The framework layout, A3 landscape, was not conducive to printing, readability, and really a barrier to consultation. And I hope further council offerings go back to portrait and A4. And some recent council works in neighbourhood activity centres need to be improved upon. E.g. the Rosanna Village shops now have a small deck area and seating, which is optimistically called a town square. It is not well interconnected, it is too small a space, and what facilities does it actually provide? And parklets, for all their fanfare, are what? Converted car spaces. They are just too small, too tacky, and too uninviting to be considered successful at this stage. And what would make them more inviting is large canopy trees and bench seating. Additionally, pocket parks have no minimum size, and council should be wary of considering pocket parks as open space. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one further speaker, Cameron Walker. Cameron? Do we have a copy of Cameron's? Did he? No. I'm sorry, he's not here. So there is a motion in the papers. I'll look for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Neely, seconded. Councillor Di Pasquale, comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And thank you to the Speaker. This framework aims for better quality activated spaces, and I like to use the term multi-purpose and accessible. The public spaces discussed in the paper are parks, reserves, sporting fields, streetscapes, pedestrian links and plazas. And we know just from listening to all the residents that have spoken tonight how important our public space is. In Beale Ward, Anthony Beale is an example of this, important to residents, taking their morning, afternoon, evening walks, sporting clubs, obviously, local schools that also use the grounds. It's a space that's shared to all different groups. And I can't forget the dog owners and the dogs themselves. So I'm glad that there is a vision for Banyul's public realm. We want to encourage people, early years, youth, adults, older adults, to improve the access and livability of this area.
Thank you. Further comment? I'll just like to thank the officers. A great piece of work, and if you think about it, as we state government put forward their projections of development, a lot more people are going to be living in apartments or smaller dwellings. So making sure we get the public realm is even more important than it ever has been before, and that's great cities have great public realms. That's why you go to places like Paris. That's why you go to places like Amsterdam, and you name all the great cities of the world. It's because they have great open spaces where people can come together and enjoy things. So very pleased to adopt this, and I hope it will really lift the quality of our public realms and something for this council to work towards. So I'll put that, all those in favour? Thank you. We'll move on to item 7. There are none. Our thriving local communities, there are none. Notices of motions, there are none. General business. We have a couple of items of general business tonight. Councillor Champion, you'd like to talk about the citizenship ceremony?
I can talk briefly about the citizenship ceremony, and I can talk about the Eltham 30th birthday party, Eltham Library. Beautiful ceremony on Wednesday evening, as usual. Several, 150 of our residents took citizenship and sang along to our Australian songs, and we had the pleasure of listening to the Heidelberg Choral Society again. They are fantastic. They provide beautiful, beautiful sound for us. So a very, very happy and enthusiastic group of people on Wednesday night, held at the centre in Ivanhoe. Eltham Library celebrated its 30th birthday on Saturday.
And we were treated by the presence of Jim, who was the designer and architect, and the Eltham Historical Society also spoke to us about the significance of the very unique library that Eltham Library is. So very happy birthday, 30th birthday to Eltham Library, and may there be at least another 30 years of life in it. It is a beautiful, beautiful building. If you haven't been yet, please go and just walk around and have a look. Again, it is warm and the Wi-Fi is free. Thanks, Mayor.
It is a lovely library. Also like to, a general item to recognise the four Banyule residents received an OAM in the recent King's Birthday Awards. First one, Jeff Franklin of East Ivanhoe, received an OAM for his services to athletics, and I know Jeff has been a huge supporter of the Ivanhoe Harriers and a driving force into the rejuvenation of that organisation and the successful move from Greensborough to the Chelsworth Park, and he actually worked for the same organisation I used to work for, so I know Jeff, and he has been a very hard-working and dedicated servant of Ivanhoe Harriers. We have Barry Williams from Rosanna, who I don't know, who received an OAM for his service to the law and the community. Josephine Rotley from Nearlamby, OAM services for youth and the community. And Ernest Blake from Bundoora, services to veterans and their families and the community. And it just constantly reminds you of the many hard-working and dedicated residents in Banyule that makes this a beautiful place to be. Buildings are important, but people are more important, and we have some fantastic residents in Banyule that and I'm looking around at a couple of other OAMs who are sitting in this room as we speak, who have also been a huge contribution to this community, and we can pat ourselves on the back, but it's the people that worked so hard in the past and continue to do so that make Banyule a beautiful place to live in. So I'd like to thank all those people and recognise them for their achievements in getting a OAM. And there's 4 public questions, and I'll get the public questions. Thank you, Alison. The first one is Wendy Palliser. Is Wendy here? Welcome, Wendy.
Okay, good evening, CEO, Mayor, councillors. Hope we find you in good spirits, because we need you on board our mission when it needs to be later on. But anyway, what sites or locations of the Heidelberg Heights GRZ2 residential zone north of Bell Street on top of the hill warrants or validates council's proposal for higher density to a GRZ5 zoning in the MAC? In consideration that the area is an established residential area, period homes, gardens, modern 2-storey townhouses, incongruent with its neighbouring block, also GRZ2 residential, named as Section A in the amendment of C172, proposed to be removed from the major activity centre. So that's just a little added bit there.
I did notice you added that little bit there. Thank you, Wendy. There is a response. Natasha Swan, could you read the response, please?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. It's a long-standing priority of State Government Activity Centre policy that the boundary of a major activity centre should include sufficient residential land to provide growth in housing supply and diversity around the commercial, retail, service and transport core of the centre. This is to provide an increase in the density and diversity of housing in close walking distance to a concentration of services, employment and public transport. In preparing the Heidelberg Structure Plan in April 2023, it was identified that part of Heidelberg Heights is now subject to 2 planning frameworks: the framework provided by the Structure Plan and the Postcode 3081 Urban Design Framework, which plans for appropriate residential renewal and housing change in a residential corridor generally located in the far west of the municipality between Perkins Street and Doherty Road. This section of land that is subject to 2 planning frameworks is a relatively small area in the far northeast corner of the MAC and is set back from Bell Street and generally bordered by Waterdale Road, Edwin Street and St Helier Street. Amendment C172 proposes to implement this action of removing the duplication by removing this area referred to as Area A by the amendment from the boundary of the Heidelberg Major Activity Centre as defined in the planning scheme.
We can have a discussion. Could you contact Wendy at some stage if you have further questions? Thank you. The next presenter is Melissa Murphy-Webster. Welcome, Melissa.
My question is, why doesn't Banyule City Council allow electronic submissions for petitions? Darebin, Nillumbik, Yarra and Hume, as well as the Victorian Parliament, allow this form of petitioning, mostly with the caveat of using an email address as the signature. The Victorian Parliament have it incorporated in their website. This allows the public to be able to see what other issues are concerning the Victorians. Not allowing an electronic method prevents many residents from being able to be aware of the petition in the first place, and also participating in them due to many factors including disability and ill health. This is not inclusive practices. I think it would be beneficial for Banyule to update the criteria and really consider having an electronic bulletin board to list them, as it will serve to assist Banyule Council more with understanding what is impacting residents and a real scope of how many residents share that same concern, especially when there's been a lot of feedback from the community about consultation process. Thank you.
Thank you. Response from government, please, Kirsten.
Thank you, Melissa. Council acknowledges that petitions are long-standing processes whereby members of the community can submit petitions to demonstrate community support or for views on a request for matter, which is to be presented directly to Council. In line with Council's Governance Rules, Chapter 3, Rule 69, Sub-Rule 10, the Chief Executive Officer may determine that an electronic or online petition can be submitted to Council meetings, even when it hasn't been submitted in the form, or through the platform required by these rules, for example, change.org petitions. Council also notes that through the rules, petitions can be submitted by formally lodging the petition online via Council's e-petition platform once it's been developed. Council currently has a digital transformation project and associated budget that has a range of projects that have been assessed and prioritised through Council's ICT committee. Although the e-petition platform project commenced in 2021 to 22 financial year, it has been prioritised through that project prioritisation process and will resume in the 24-25 financial year, so that should be built and developed shortly. Once established, the e-petition platform will provide a very accessible portal for the community to submit e-petitions to Council in accordance with the rules. Other electronic petitions are still permissible under the governance rules, and officers agree that there is great benefit in having an established e-petition platform for the reasons stated in the question, advising local community issues and promoting matters that are impacting other residents to advocate to Council for action.
Thank you. The next question is from Alicia Curry. Welcome back, Alicia.
Thank you for being able to ask this question. So in the last few years, I've seen multiple ward meetings advertised for Beale, Grimshaw, Griffin and Charlesworth and possibly others. However, despite Ibbott Ward, which includes Rosanna and McLeod, being impacted by some of the largest projects in Banyule, including North East Link, the Woolworths Partnership and the level crossing removals, one to come in McLeod, we've yet to see any advertised ward meeting. So how does Council assess and provide equitable resources to each ward when this is the case? Thank you. Happy to answer questions on that as well.
Kirsten, would you like to respond, please?
Sure. Thank you, Alicia. Councillors are responsible for representing their own wards and broader community, and therefore responsible for determining how they best want to represent and engage with constituents who fall in their wards or otherwise. Throughout the council term, councillors are able to employ a range of different strategies that may be the same or that may be different from their councillor colleagues to inform, hear the views and engage with the community. Some councillors choose to be out and about with the community in their wards, meeting with residents and constituents on local issues regularly. Other councillors have opted to hold ad hoc ward meetings. Ward meetings are not mandatory or required to occur and are at the discretion of each councillor should they want them organised. The meetings are promoted in the News for Neighbourhood newsletter, and the room hire facility use is in council's own facilities at no cost, where selected times are available and free. In 2023, the community feedback that was generated from the Governance Rules Review highlighted that some residents in Banyule wanted council to host a community forum to hear and learn about council business and to chat to their councillors. Councillors as a collective decided to host 2 informal meet and greet sessions that were held at both Greensborough and Belfield, with councillors attending across both sessions.
Thank you. Our next question is Lauren Sanders. Welcome again, Lauren.
All good? Beautiful. Thank you, Mayor and councillors. So further to my comment on the disrepair of the footpaths in the north of Banyule, I will note that Railway Road in Briar Hill has actually had no safe access since 2021, and the railway shared path works have all but come to a grinding halt. I drive that road multiple times a day. Workers aren't cited. So, my question, given the disregard for pedestrian safety, how many insurance claims has council received in the last 12 months regarding damaged footpaths? Thank you.
Tony, could you respond, please?
Through you, Mayor. This financial year, council has received 16 claims related to the condition of footpaths. Of these claims, 6 have been denied, 6 have been discontinued, and 4 are pending an outcome. 9 of these claims relate to trips and falls, and 7 relate to allegations of damage to infrastructure.
Thank you. Well, that concludes the public question. There are no confidential items tonight. The next ordinary meeting of council will be on the 15th of July. I thank you for your attendance. I thank you for your input. I think it's been a very productive and wonderful meeting. I'd also like to acknowledge that we had our old friend Rosie Bray come to join us tonight. So I did say how unkind that it was the dogs that look what the dogs have dragged into the building, but but thanks Anne-Marie for bringing Rosie along. It's lovely to see you. Thank you, and good night everybody.